And welcome back, everyone, for another episode of Chasing Ghosts. This is the video series where I talk about those hard to find, those impossible to find comics, that really, really rare stuff, those high ratio incentives, those exclusives, those things you just don't see at your LCS every week. Some books you got to do some digging and get lucky, and definitely a lot of legwork to track down. Hopefully you're enjoying this series as well as everything else here on the channel. Please let me know what you think in the comments down below. Make sure that you like, you subscribe, you hit the alert button so you don't miss anything. Keep telling your friends so we can keep growing the channel. And if you want to see this week's selection of books, just hang on for a few seconds after the intro, and I will be right back. All right, so this week I decided to do another throwback episode. Now, why am I doing a throwback episode? Well, it's because it actually feels kind of timely. With Daredevil Born Again rolling on full strong, and we got Punisher showing up here and there, and I think rumors are that he might be on tonight's episode. I decided, you know what, let's look at some Punisher variants again, and I've covered a lot of them before, which is why we got to look at them again. So this won't be for the first time. Granted, I looked at these 3 years ago, so the data is going to be completely different now. So let's see what has changed from 2022 to 2025 for these 5 books that I decided to take a look at, all focused in on the Punisher. Now, not going to waste any time. We're just going to dive right into it with our first book. And the first one was a very popular book back in the day. This was a cover that a lot of people wanted. Granted, it is a gorgeous cover. I do like it. It's a Jerome Opeña. This Punisher sitting there in front of the graffiti wall with the Punisher written behind him is an awesome look. This is just a really cool cover, and I'd love to have one. I do not have one, but I'd love to have one. But like I said, this one came out way back in February 2014. So this is over 11 years old at this point. And like I said, it's a Jerome Opeña cover. This was a 1 in 50 incentive, and the print run estimated at the time was a little over 31,000. So if we do that very quick ratio math, that would give us an estimate of 634 copies. That is not an exact number. I'm not saying that it is. I'm just giving you a broad generalization that if you take the estimated print run, divide it by the incentive variant, that gives you an idea of how many copies may be out there. We all know that's not how it works exactly, but just for broad strokes purposes, to give you a sense, that's why I'm giving you that information. It is not gospel. It's not set in stone. So please, I don't want to have to clarify every time I do one of these shows, but just in case we have new viewers, I feel like I need to. So with that said, I'm not going to say it every time out for the rest of the books, but best information that we have. Now, with that said, we do have the CGC census, which does tell us exactly what we have in the census at this time. And this book does have quite a bit of copies in it because, as I mentioned, it was pretty popular and still is. So much so that there are 131 graded copies of this variant in the CGC census, with 106 of them being 9.8s and 18 9.6s. So by and large, all of them are very high grade. There are a random few. There's 394s, there's 492s, and that's it. But that's a lot of high grade copies out there. So just keep that in context along with other information that I'm going to present to you. Now, that number of 131 and with the 106 9.8s, when we did this 3 years ago, we had 79 9.8s. So you can see there were still a lot then, but an additional, what is that, almost 30 copies have come in the last 3 years. So that's 10 a year almost being added to the census of new 9.8s. Like I said, this is a popular book. Now, with that said, it's also not cheap. We did have one sale the last 3 months, and it was a CBCS 9.8, and that's not even part of my census numbers because the CBCS, their population report is a little different and just not as easy to navigate. I tried to do it years ago to incorporate it into this show, and it's just not worth it. It just isn't worth it. CGC census, easy to maneuver in, and broad strokes purposes, it helps give me what I need. CBCS census or population report, whatever the heck they call it, not so much. That said, a 9.8 of this book did sell from CBCS for $1,000. And that was way back. Actually, not way back. That was just 3 days ago. That was March 22nd. So look at that. Very popular book, sold just days ago. Granted, if you wanted to go and buy one now, you do have two options. I found two. That's not a lot, but it's still two. So we do have 9.6s. Oh, actually, I'm sorry. We have a 9.6 that's looking for $1,050, so a little over $1,000, and then we also have a 9.8 that only wants $940. I'm pretty sure I know which one of the two I would buy first, but I'm still not spending that kind of money personally on this book. But considering there are two copies out there and two copies available, you know how we do this, right? There has to be one or none for us to get that ghost call. So this one, albeit expensive and hard to find, this one is attainable, and you can go and grab this one up if you want to pay the piper for it and pay that price. So with that, you can get this one. We'll just call this book Hard to Find. And like I said, I still do really like this cover a lot. Now, before we move on, I just want to remind all of you out there who haven't tried Whatnot before, please use my link down below, sign up, give the app a try, get yourselves a free $15 to spend on whatever you want with whomever you want. No strings attached, $15 to try out the app. Get yourself something nice. You also help out the channel. So keep that in mind if you haven't tried it before. This is your chance. Get yourselves $15 on that first purchase. I'll make my way back there soon, but I don't know exactly when. As I mentioned before on previous shows, I got a busy month ahead with family obligations, wife birthday, anniversary, family birthdays, etc. Busy April for me, apart from Easter coming up and WrestleMania, by the way. But that all aside, let's roll on with the list and check out the next book that I have for you. And this is actually going to be a series of books. And again, I covered these back about 3 years ago. I think it was March of 2022. At some point, it was like episode 40 something or other, 41 maybe. I did cover these Soviet Punisher books, or Punisher Soviet books. It is a 6-issue limited series. Each one of them did have a variant, but we're not covering all of them. I'm not going to, because again, we're only doing 5 books on this show, so I'm not doing all 6, but I am going to do issues 3, 4, 5, and 6, basically the end of the run, because the first 2 are a little bit easier to track down, so I didn't want to go through the whole exercise when I know you could find those first 2 much easier than the rest. With that said, we're going to start, as I mentioned, with that issue number 3. Pretty cool cover. It's Frank, kind of silhouetted against, the big Russian flag background. It's a cool image. This was from January of 2020. Michael Dowling cover here. Pretty cool. Not that easy to track down, mind you. This is a 1 in 25, as all of these are. These will all be 1 in 25s for this, for this mini series. The estimated print run at the time was a little over 20,000, so that would give our estimated incentive maybe a little over 800. Again, broad strokes, guesses. In the census, however, we don't have many. In fact, we have 2. Yep, that's right. Just 2. And they're both 9.8s, but there are only 2 in the CGC census. And to make matters more interesting, when we did this exercise 3 years ago, there were none. So those 2 popped up in the last 3 years at some point. Cool. I don't know. Fine. I find that personally interesting. But with that said, if you want to know what the market's willing to pay for this, well, you're going to have to wait a little bit longer or go back a little bit further, because in the last 3 months, none have sold. So I do know this book has sold in prior iterations anywhere from like 50 to like triple digits, depending on the timing. I've seen it happen, but those dates are so stale now, we can't really use that. So I don't know what this would go for right now. But as of right now, none sold the last 3 months. And if you wanted to go and buy one, I went looking and I could not find any. I couldn't find any on eBay, at least. I'm sure maybe you dig in your shop, wherever you do your comic hunting, maybe you could track one of these down. But I did some digging. I couldn't find one right now. So, as you know, you could guess where this one's going to go. That's our first of this Punisher Soviet series, but it's not the last. We're going to keep this rolling on and go on to our next book and the next installment in this series. Now, I like this. The whole cover run is really, really well done, if you ask me. Granted, they are very, very similar, but still, it's Punisher. It's a look that we all kind of expect. And here is the cover to issue number 4. And yeah, it's Frank standing there with a weapon. Yeah, just being menacing in his long leather jacket. Like that's what we come to expect out of Punisher, no? This one is, again, pretty cool. This is issue 4. This is Isad Ribic. Rybeck. I don't know if I can say that anywhere close to proper, but, fantastic artist. February 2020, this one came out. Also a 1 in 25, as I mentioned before. This entire run is 1 in 25s. Print run went down a little bit to a little over 19,000, so our estimated incentive went down to maybe 777. In the CGC census, there are more. There are more than the last one, but not that many more. We have 33. So, 33 copies compared to 2. Granted, 31 of them are 9.8s. We have one 9.6 and one 9.2, and that's it. That is a big deal, considering when I looked at this years ago, 3 years ago, when I did this exercise, I only had 198. So you tell me we added 30 over the last 3 years? That's what the census is telling me. So I guess we have. I guess there was a rush. Maybe a bunch of these were found somewhere. Maybe a diamond pallet sale. I don't know. All I know is we went from 1 in 2022 to 31. That's kind of interesting too. With that said, recent sale-wise, I did manage to find one sale the last 3 months, and it was all of $28 at auction. That's right. For a CGC 9.2, yep, that 9.2 in the census sold for only $28. That's basically the cost to grade it. That is an abysmal amount for auction, which is, once again, why I remind any of you out there who are looking to sell any of these rare, hard-to-find type books, things you just can't find a market for, I would recommend you do not put a book like that up for auction, because this could happen to you. Granted, if you were to put a book like this at least up for, I don't know, I'll just ballpark a number, throw $100 out there in that same 9.2, maybe 8, whatever. Put a number out there. Let it sit. Field offers. You get a sense. Let the market come to you. I would not have done this. Just saying. I've mentioned it many, many times before. Books that are not technically hot or new, I would not put up for auction. Unless you really just don't care what the return is. Then that's a different story. But I'm sure the person that did grade this 9.2, it cost them at least $28 to grade this thing. When you factor in shipping and all of that fees and whether you had any sort of, just saying, it ain't free to grade books. So keep that in mind too. And with that said, if you wanted to buy one, let's see what we got on the market, because we did have 2. That's right. I found 2 again on the market for this book, a 9.8 and a raw. The raw is looking for $70. That makes good sense to me. Like, seems about a ballpark price I'd put on this. And the 9.8 is really only $130. Also, not too bad when you consider it is a 1 in 25. Not that easy to track down. Granted, in the last 3 years, we seem to have a rush on 9.8, so maybe it's not as hard as it was 3 years ago. I don't know. But these prices are interesting, and the fact that there are 2 of them, once again, means we cannot call it a ghost. So, not as pricey as our first book, but still a couple copies out there if you want to go and pay for them. With that said, I still like this cover. Once again, I don't remember which one. I do have a couple from this run. I just don't remember which ones. I think I got 3, and I might have 4 here. I think those are the 2 that I got, but I'm not 100% certain. I got to go digging in boxes to be certain. I know you're asking yourself, how can you not know what you have? When you got a lot of books, sometimes you forget. Point being, I'm always on the lookout, even if it was for a second copy. With that said, any of you out there who are in the market to get some materials for supplies for your comics and your collectibles, I shop at BCW. That's usually what I get when I'm ordering bags and boards. That's usually what I get when I'm getting short boxes and long boxes. Granted, I don't get many long boxes these days. I'm getting old. I prefer shorter boxes. But point being, you can get your long boxes or your short boxes, your CGC boxes, top loaders, card pages, bags and boards, just like I mentioned. Whatever you need to keep your comics and collectibles safe, you can find something for yourself at BCW. And if you use the link and my code RENA10, you get yourself 10% off your entire order. That's right, 10% off your entire order. Get whatever you need supply-wise, and you'll be set for a while. At least that's how I usually do it. I also buy in bulk, so I don't have to order all the time. You try to reach those free shipping marks too, so you can save a little money there. Do what you got to do. Point being, use this code to save yourself some money. Granted, if you have a better code, obviously use that. But if you don't have anything, Renna10 will get you 10% off your order. So just consider it. Again, you help out the channel, you get a discount on your stuff. Now, we're almost done. We have a couple more books to cover. I told you a couple more Punisher Soviet books in this run just to kind of cover for it today. And if you guys like Punisher, also come back tomorrow on the tax show because we might be talking Punisher there too. Because as I mentioned, Daredevil Born Again has been steering the bus for a lot of content that we're liking to cover these days because it's one of the few shows that are on right now. So, with that said, number 5, once again, look at those eyes on Frank. Intensity. Just, I dig it. I don't know. There's something about the white eyes in the shadows. It's intense. I like it. This cover was from March of 2020. It's a Valerio Giangiordano. I don't know if I'm saying it right. You can see what I wrote there. That's the cover artist. Intense eyes. I dig it. Also a 1 in 25. Print run down again near that 19,000 mark. So the incentive is right around the same as the last book, but maybe a couple less at 771 estimate. In the CGC census, however, there are a lot less. This is not like the last book. This one only has 7. 6 9.8s and a single 9.6. And that's it. So only 7. And when I looked at this book 3 years ago, there were actually none. There were none graded for this particular variant. So all 7 of those are new in the last 3 years. Granted, it's 3 years, but a couple a year, that's not too bad. A couple being found and graded. Seems about right. This book had a recent sale of, where are we at? One sale. Oh, look at that. Raw copy sold for $150 back in January. Not bad. Not bad. Not bad price right there. If you wanted to buy one, I went searching. I went scouring. I went digging. I went looking. And I managed to find 2. Once again, 2. Not a lot of copies, but enough copies to take this out of contention. So 2 copies here, both raw. One looking for $100, the other one looking for $200. Granted, one's marked near mint, the other one doesn't say. It just says very hard to find, rare little print. So don't know the grade. You got to zoom in, take a look at all the pictures, etc. for yourself. But $100 or $200 are the asking prices right now. So, like our last Punisher book, this one with a pair of copies available takes it out of contention and puts it in that hard to find category, as you could scoop this up and gobble it up if you want to. You just got to pay the price of admission, which is at least $100, if not $200, depending on which copy you want. Again, dig this cover. I like it, but I'm still a bit of a cheap shopper, so I'm still not buying it at either of those prices personally. You guys do what you like. With that said, we've got one book left. So one more book to cover. And it's the final one in the series. And I actually did not cover this one the last time out. For one reason or another, I did not cover this Punisher Soviet issue 6. Once again, Frank, flowing coat, weapon in hand, knife in mouth. This actually was a surprising. This is a Takashi Okazaki, who has come to prominence in the last couple of years. At the time, I didn't know who he was as an artist. Now, after that, the Spider-Man book kind of put him on the map, and the Star Wars Ronin book, etc., and that Yoda book. He's had a couple of hits with collectors. So now many people know the name. But back then, I didn't know it. I'll admit it. So also, March of 2020, same month as the last book. One was at the beginning of the month, one was at the end of the month. Double shipped in March. Okazaki cover here. Also, a 1 in 25 print run for that final issue dwindled a little bit more, down to 18,000. So our incentive went down to maybe 734. Again, estimates, best info we got, best we got to work with. Now, with that said, we do have in the census all of 3 copies. 198, 296s. And I would not be shocked if these 3 were new the past 3 years. I can't say that for certain because I didn't cover this 3 years ago, so I don't know what was in the census 3 years ago because I don't have that research because I didn't do it then. I didn't cover this book 3 years ago. So this is a newer one, but it's still in the same vein and in the same ballpark as the rest. But I wouldn't be surprised if these 3 are on the newer side of things. But again, only 198 and 296s. That's really not a lot. Nor are the copies sold on the market at this point, as I couldn't find any for our issue 6. No copies sold in the last 3 months on that eBay sales history. So got no pricing there for you. And when I went to see if there were any available, I managed to find one. Just one. But I did find one. Granted, one's $100. So also not cheap. It's $100 for this 1 in 25 variant. That is a solid price for it. I don't know if that's a good price. I don't know if it's a bad price. It's a price. Not one that I'm going to pay, because again, I'm kind of cheap and I'm not really in the market for this right now. But you guys make the call for yourselves of what you think. But since there is only one, you know what that means for the criteria. This one could get away from you. So, with that said, we're done. We've got all 5 books covered. Let's take a look at our recap here. We did 5 books. So Punisher 2, and then we had Soviets issues 3 through 6. And out of that grouping, only 2 of them fit the criteria of Ghost, because there were no copies of issue 3 and only 1 copy of issue 6. But granted, all the other books, they only had 2 copies each. So it's not like there's a ton out there for those either. So keep that in mind as well. But hopefully you found that interesting. We're going to call these ones Ghosts for this week. Again, snapshot in time. Different than it was 3 years ago. Or was it? I don't know. You can check out that old show too if you want to see some of the other books I covered then. But for now, until next time, I just wanted to thank you. Appreciate all the support. I'm still having a lot of fun doing these. Hope you guys like these throwbacks, because these are actually very easy for me to put together, because half of it's already kind of picked out. I already got some books to go and look at. If you like these throwbacks to see a 3-year update, I can do more of that. Otherwise, I have to keep digging for new books, because after 130 episodes of this, I've covered a lot of comics. I've covered a lot of hard-to-find comics, and they get fewer and far between, so repeats will be necessary at some point. And I don't mind. You guys let me know what you think in the comments down below. But with that all said, thanks again for all the support, and I'll see you all soon with some more content. All right, later.